People often say, if you work hard enough, you'll make it. But the truth is, some people spend their whole lives working hard and barely move forward, while others somehow go so far ahead, no one can even explain it. Why is it that two people can study the same subjects, work the same hours, stay up late, wake up early, yet one becomes Bill Gates while the other struggles just to pay their monthly bills? We assume success comes from personal willpower, talent, and hard work. But Malcolm Gladwell asks the opposite question. What actually pushes extraordinary individuals to become outliers? People who rise far beyond the majority. You might be surprised to discover that many geniuses or billionaires didn't start with extraordinary talent. Gladwell argues that successful people aren't born destined to succeed. They're the ones who were prepared for the right opportunity at exactly the right moment. So how much of your own success truly comes from effort? And how much comes from opportunities you never even realized were there? Part 1. The 10,000-hour rule. Geniuses aren't born, they're shaped. When we look at someone remarkably successful, our instinct is often to think they were born talented. But outliers reveal something most of us completely overlook. Behind every so-called genius lies a long, invisible period of practice that almost no one ever notices. Gladwell calls this the 10,000-hour rule. It isn't just about working hard. It's about deliberate practice, continuous, intentional training long enough for a skill to eventually become second nature, almost like it's in your bloodstream. Look at the Beatles. Before they became global music legends, they performed hundreds of nights in a row in small clubs in Germany, 6 to 8 hours every single night. No glamorous stage lights, no massive cheering crowds, just a group of young musicians being forced to play so much that their skills simply had to grow beyond ordinary limits. That wasn't luck, that was accumulation. Or take Bill Gates. People remember him as a technology genius, but few realize that while his friends were outside playing, Gates had access to a computer when he was just 13, something extremely rare at the time. Over 10,000 hours of experimenting before Microsoft even existed. Success, sure, but more importantly, he started practicing long before the world even recognized computers were the future. And here's the question that shakes us a little. We envy the outcome, but rarely pay attention to the years of preparation no one ever saw. People say they want to be experts, want to be wealthy, want to be successful. Yet when we look at their habits, nothing reflects those ambitions. No consistent learning, no deep practice, no daily discipline. Just desire without the hours. Ask yourself honestly, what would happen if you spent just 2 hours every single day, without skipping, mastering one skill for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? Maybe you won't become Bill Gates, but you definitely won't remain just ordinary. Gladwell makes a powerful point. Practice isn't something you do once you're good. Practice is what makes you good. The real question isn't whether you're talented, it's whether you're persistent enough to become extraordinary.
Part 2. The golden timing. Being born at the right moment matters more than you think. Malcolm Gladwell presents an uncomfortable truth. Not all success comes from personal effort. A big part of it comes from showing up at the exact moment history is opening a door. Look at Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. They were all born in the mid-1950s. That isn't random. That decade created a golden cohort, old enough to touch early computers, yet young enough to catch the coming technological wave before it exploded into a global revolution. If they had been born 10 years earlier, computers didn't exist yet. 10 years later, the big opportunities would have already belonged to someone else. Gladwell calls this the window of opportunity, a social doorway that opens only during specific periods. Step through at the right time and the road widens. Arrive just a few years off and every advantage has already been taken. What's fascinating is that extraordinary people understand this. They learn to see the signs of their era instead of fighting alone in the dark. This idea hits a sensitive point. We grow up believing anyone can succeed if they try hard enough. But Gladwell forces readers to pause and ask, are we living in a moment when opportunities are opening or closing? You can be talented and hardworking, but if you tried to build a tech empire in 1995, you would have been too early, before Google and Amazon existed. Do it in 2025, and the market is already crowded with giants, which means you're too late. A very American example. Many parents think pushing kids to study earlier and harder is the key to success. But Gladwell reveals a different truth. A child born in January often has a huge advantage over a child born in December simply because they're older and more physically developed at school selection age. That tiny advantage leads to better teams, elite programs, and extra training. Over time, that small edge snowballs into a massive one, and eventually, we assume the child just had better genes. But Gladwell is clear. This isn't giftedness. This is timing. So what's the lesson? Very few people study the context of their era. Everyone wants to do something great, but almost nobody asks a more important question: is now the right moment for what I want to do? You might not be born in the same golden decade as Gates or Jobs, but history doesn't open one door only once. It opens many, but only for those who are paying attention. The real question isn't, am I talented? The real question is, where is opportunity shifting right now? And maybe the painful realization is this: sometimes success doesn't fail because you didn't try hard enough, but because you were running in the right direction at the wrong time. Part 3. Culture and origin. Where you grow up shapes how you think. Americans are often taught that anyone can create their own destiny if they just try hard enough. But Gladwell points out a quieter truth operating beneath the surface. You don't just carry your last name, you carry the history, beliefs, and habits of the place you come from. And those invisible inheritances shape how you respond to challenges, how you work, and even how you imagine your own future. In Outliers, Gladwell tells the story of South Korean airline pilots in the 1990s. Smart, highly trained people, yet airline accidents happen far too often. The problem wasn't lack of skill. It was a cultural habit of respecting authority so strongly that junior crew members hesitated to speak up even when they saw danger. A silence rooted in culture accidentally created unimaginable consequences. But when cockpit communication changed, accident rates dropped dramatically. This might sound distant, but look closely and you'll see yourself in it. A family that always saved money ends up raising people who keep saving even when they earn plenty. A family that lived through scarcity may raise children who fear risk for life. And a family that believes success is rare ends up passing that belief on as a self-fulfilling prophecy. In America, some communities treat education as the obvious path upward, so that children go to college assuming it's normal. Other communities treat college as something nearly unattainable, and children grow up asking, "Am I even capable?" instead of, "Where will I go?" Two mindsets, two completely different life paths, all from the simple fact of where you were born. Gladwell wants us to look inward and ask, what legacy am I carrying without even realizing it? Is it the perseverance of immigrant parents, the fear of risk passed down from a family that once failed, or the belief that life must be stable before dreams, even though the modern world rewards those who take bold chances. You can see this contrast clearly in Silicon Valley, where failure is normal, even respected. The culture of learn fast, fail fast encourages young founders to try, to experiment, to make mistakes. Meanwhile, in many other places, a single financial failure can stop someone from ever trying again. And then Gladwell asks a question that almost stops the reader in their tracks. How much of your life is truly your own choice? And how much is something you simply inherited? You can leave your hometown. You can change jobs, move cities, rebuild your life. But the beliefs you absorbed as a child, those stay with you like a quiet voice in your head, influencing every major decision you make. Maybe the first step toward changing your future is understanding just how deeply your past has been running the show.
Part 4. Family and Environment. Not everyone is given the same playing field. Gladwell emphasizes something that makes many people go quiet. Not all children enter life at the same starting line. Some families can introduce their kids to musical instruments at age 4, extra classes at age 6, and special clubs throughout childhood, while other families can only afford to keep their kids safe, and even that already feels like a blessing. Gladwell isn't saying this to excuse failure or diminish personal effort. He's pointing out a reality society prefers to ignore. Early environments create accumulated advantages, and as those advantages continue year after year, they eventually turn into extraordinary results that outsiders mistakenly label as natural talent. Think about the child who goes to violin lessons every Monday, advanced math every Tuesday, and science camp every summer, while another child has parents working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills, spending afternoons alone or wandering the neighborhood until dark. Same society, same age, but completely different conditions of upbringing. Gladwell describes people who succeeded in technology. Almost all of them grew up around computers, technical books, and adults who knew how to guide them. Bill Gates got access to a computer as a teenager, at a time when almost no one could. But instead of saying Bill Gates was lucky, Gladwell wants us to see that his family environment activated the right curiosity at the right time, allowing him to accumulate thousands of hours very early. And if you look at America today, you'll see it still holds true. The difference between a child with guiding parents and a child who must figure everything out alone is massive. Some parents know how to ask the right questions, encourage exploration, and refuse to crush dreams just because they're difficult. Others simply hope their kids stay out of trouble, and that's considered enough. The deeper message is this: success isn't just personal, it's the outcome of an entire ecosystem. So what should we, adults who've already walked part of the journey, take away from this? Gladwell offers a deeply human perspective. Instead of blaming ourselves for not being good enough, we should ask a more honest question. What conditions was I given, and how can I build the ones I didn't have? If you weren't born into the right environment, create one. Take extra classes, find mentors, join communities, or simply surround yourself with people whose mindset pushes you further. There's a familiar saying that captures this perfectly. If you can't change your family tree, plant a new one. What matters isn't what you were given at birth, but what you decide to cultivate from the moment you finally understand the difference. Part 5. Luck isn't random, it's timing plus preparation. Malcolm Gladwell argues that when we look at success, we tend to credit almost everything to personal talent, but what he actually discovers points in a different direction. Extraordinary people all share a moment where opportunity arrived exactly when they were already prepared, not because they simply got lucky. Opportunity is like a door that opens quickly, and it only matters to those standing in the right place at the right time with the right foundation. But more importantly, they must have spent enough time practicing long before that door opened. Outsiders look at them and say they're fortunate, But in reality, they built a massive foundation long before anyone noticed. Think about Serena Williams. Many say she was born to be a tennis legend, but few know that she was trained professionally from the age of 4, pushed by her father to practice with players older and stronger than her. So when the global wave of women's tennis exploded and sponsorships skyrocketed, Serena wasn't just a talented player. She was the only athlete with the power, technique, and discipline to dominate that era. If that wave had come 10 years earlier or 10 years later, the outcome would have been entirely different. The same logic repeats everywhere. Opportunity only matters to those who are ready. For those who aren't prepared, opportunity passes by as if it never existed. America looks at Serena and says she was lucky her dad was a coach. But Gladwell pushes us to ask a deeper question. Without the 10,000 hours of training before that, could having a coach for a father have created the Serena we know today? The more Gladwell studies, the clearer it becomes. Luck shows up often in the lives of successful people, but it only becomes a turning point when they have the ability to transform that luck into momentum. Many people encounter similar chances, yet only a few rise. Why? Because when opportunity knocks, most people aren't skilled enough to even hear the knock. Sound familiar? How many of us have had an opportunity once, but lacked the knowledge, skill, or mental readiness to seize it? Gladwell leaves us with a truth that stings but resonates. Opportunity isn't fair, but we can increase our odds by preparing more than others. The real question isn't, are you lucky? The real question is, if luck shows up tomorrow, will you be ready for it?
Part 6. Success is also a legacy, passed on from previous generations. Gladwell points out something most people tend to overlook. Success isn't just about individual capability. It's also about advantages accumulated across generations, not simply in the sense of rich parents, rich kids, but in the values, beliefs, habits, and expectations quietly passed down as each child grows up. In Outliers, he shows that success is often built on foundations that are tiny, old, and almost invisible. Did the family value education? Were children encouraged to ask questions and express their opinions, or were they taught to stay quiet and let the adults speak? According to Gladwell, those details become the silent capital that shapes how someone enters the world. Just look at a very common case in the US. Families that have a reading culture tend to raise children who are exposed to knowledge, critical thinking, and most importantly, the confidence that they have the right to become someone. Meanwhile, other families, due to financial pressure or cultural silence, might unintentionally teach their kids to stay safe, talk less, or don't dream too big. Eventually, these two kids grow up in the same country, same generation, but walk into adulthood with two completely different belief systems. One of Gladwell's well-known examples is early 20th century Jewish immigrant families in New York. They weren't wealthy. Most started doing manual garment work and tailoring. But what they passed down wasn't money. It was work ethic, resourcefulness, and the ability to spot opportunity in solving real needs. The next generation didn't necessarily continue the same trade, but they inherited discipline and social ambition, and that became their true legacy. Gladwell isn't claiming that every success is given. He's asking us to recognize that nobody truly starts from zero. Some people inherit confidence, others inherit discipline, and others inherit ambition, and all of those are forms of capital. More importantly, if you weren't born into a fortunate environment, you can still start building a new legacy for the next generation, starting today. So the bigger question becomes, what legacy are you inheriting, and what legacy do you want to leave behind, beyond simply financial inheritance? Part 7. If success isn't entirely self-made, then what can we actually change? Gladwell reaches a conclusion many people don't want to hear. Success isn't only about talent or personal effort. It's shaped by the systems around us, our era, our environment, the socioeconomic background we're born into, and even the so-called random events in our lives. Everything converges and lifts some paths more than others. And yes, that idea makes many people uncomfortable because it challenges the classic story of, I built everything with my own two hands. But Gladwell isn't trying to make excuses for failure. He wants us to face reality. If we can't control every condition around us, then the real question becomes, what can we control? Maybe it's how we spend our time, the environment we choose to live in, the communities we join, the skills we develop, or even just how we respond when opportunity finally shows up. Looking deeper, Outliers raises a very modern dilemma. In a world where conditions matter so much, will the next generation still have equal opportunity? This question feels especially relevant in the United States, where gaps in wealth, education, and access are widening. A child growing up in a tech-savvy family in California might learn AI, robotics, and coding early, while another child in a rural town might have to figure everything out using an old smartphone. Do they really start from the same line? And now we're entering a new era, Industry 4.0 and AI, where machines don't just replace physical labor anymore, but increasingly replace intellectual labor too. Learning new skills is no longer optional, it's survival. Jobs once considered safe or stable are now threatened by algorithms, robots, and automation. When the environment changes this fast, how far can personal effort alone still take us? Gladwell never gives a definitive answer. Instead, he leaves us with a challenge. If success is no longer just a personal story, but also a product of the times, then where does our responsibility lie? Maybe not in trying to build everything by ourselves, but in choosing the right environment, recognizing trends earlier than others, preparing before opportunities arrive, and most importantly, embracing change instead of resisting it. No one builds success entirely on their own. We are shaped by our era, our families, and our cultural background, but recognizing that truth actually gives us the chance to discover our own path. Outliers doesn't just answer the question of why some people succeed, it offers a new lens so you can begin writing your own story in a constantly changing world. If you want to dive deeper and turn these insights into real actions for your future, I highly recommend reading Outliers. You'll find the link in the description below. This is one of those books everyone should read at least once in their lifetime.